Hi, everyone. We are Functional Training Zone, and we are here with the Uncommon Connectors, our podcast. Today, we are speaking with Congressman Glenn Ivey of the 4th District of Maryland. We're very excited to get to know him, get to know about his background, and all things that led him down this path. Thank you very much for meeting with us today, and we're excited to have him.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
There is no one else in creation like you. There's nobody like you. And what you've come to do and what you have to offer is like no other.
Great. So we're just going to dive right into it. I want to start from the very beginning. Obviously not birth, but I just want to know.
Beginning,
I
right?
know,
Yeah.
right? From the beginning. Where are you from, and how did your educational process start in politics?
Well, I'm originally from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. Both of my parents were from there. Dad went into the military. Mom became a teacher in the public school system. Schools were still segregated. Dad came back from the military, got his GI Bill, went to Shaw University, and then went into something called the Manpower Program. This is the 1960s, the Great Societies program. So that led us to moving to Northern Virginia, and that's where I grew up until I went off to college.
Okay, great. One thing I do want to touch upon, could you tell us what it was like going to segregated schools? I feel like a lot of folks in my generation and the generations after, that will be a missed part of history that, we won't be able to capture. But I find that it's important to touch upon it.
I mean, yeah, it's obviously different. We lived across the street from Booker T. Washington High School. And, the white schools had the new books, they had bus service, things like that. I think their teachers were paid more, all of that. The schools desegregated, though, just before we moved out of North Carolina, and my mother helped to desegregate 4 of the schools. She was a librarian who they had basically going on circuit, I think. So we saw that transition, and it was a big step in the right direction, obviously. But we still have issues that remain with our schools today. So I don't know if we can talk about that later, but it's not like we got out of the woods just because segregation ended. Right.
I do want to put just recognition to your mother for, leading that charge and helping in that sort of way. I think that we don't recognize, the folks that actually helped in all of those missions that their names aren't, always nationally publicized. So I do want to thank you and your mom for that and your family, because that's a very big initiative that obviously carries on, today very much so.
My father-in-law, Jolene's father, taught here in Prince George's County, and the schools were segregated when he began. He was at Frederick Douglass, and they integrated. He ended up teaching at High Point, and he'd been in the military before. He helped to integrate the military. So that's one of those things that generation did a lot of. They don't get as much credit for it as they should. I think the civil rights movement was extremely important to people who marched and, the protesters in Birmingham and the like. But there are a lot of people who are living quiet lives that made a difference too, and our parents are like that.
Thank you very much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. What else can you tell us that formed your education in your formative years once you've moved to Virginia?
Well, I mean, I did well in school, so that was a blessing, and I was also a decent athlete. It ended up being so. My school was Garfield High School. It was still largely a jock school at the time. They're IB now, but we had we were good in every sport, boys and girls, and I played basketball, and that was formative for me in a lot of ways. A lot of the so-called values of the game, I think, had a good impact on me going down the road. and the academic piece too. So it was, good preparation for me. It was a good childhood. We moved, when we left Rocky Mount, the city was still segregated. We moved to a town called Dale City, which was almost all white. I mean, we were like the second black family in the whole town. So that was a strange transition.
Yes, I'm sure.
But, I had a great childhood. I have no complaints about it, and certainly helped to propel me and prepare me for my adulthood life.
Okay, great. What was your transition into college? What college did you go into?
I went to Princeton, and that was a real transition because Dale City, even though it had been, largely white, it was kind of working class. So, we had a lot of parents who were, Dale City's right between Quantico and Fort Belvoir, so you had a lot of military families, school teachers, like that kind of thing. Princeton was a whole nother world. I mean, they had like CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and I'm sitting in class with those kids, and it was a big jump, I think, from the standpoint of actually seeing how people with that kind of wealth live, and the differences between their lives and the ones that I had. I'd had a fortunate childhood, but nothing like those kids. So it was interesting, but the upside from my perspective was, it was a great education, but it was also a good chance to see that, as they say in sports, they put their pants on the same way too. And so it took out the intimidation issue of these kids went to the elite private schools and everything. And I was like, well, I'm elite enough to compete with these guys, and did just fine. So it was a good opportunity on that front too.
All right. Something that we do talk about on the Uncommon Connector are finances. How at that time did your family and you fund the education to Princeton? When I heard of Princeton, when I was graduating high school, I always thought that it was something that was unobtainable for me, to go to such a prestigious school. And of course, the price tag associated with it. So how did you all go about funding it at that time?
Well, I mean, this is 40 plus years ago. So Princeton was like $12,000 a year. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't easy to do, mm-hmm. but it was still manageable. Okay. I think Princeton now is like $80,000 a year, maybe 90, right. when you add in not just tuition, but room and board and the like. Having said that, though, Princeton and the Ivy League schools have really generous financial aid. So okay. I think $200,000 is the cutoff, but certainly under $100,000. If your parents make less than $100,000, you can go to those schools for free. You just have to get in. And they do full financial aid, no loans, all grants. And so the initial sticker shock, I think, scares a lot of people away. But when you get in there and actually explore what they can do for you, because they have endowments that are, I think Harvard's endowment's like $80 billion or something. So they can use that to help cover financial aid to students that need it. And they don't have athletic scholarships. They actually divert that kind of funding to these sorts of programs, to the regular financial aid track. Okay. So don't be deterred. Make sure whatever that initial number is, it's just an initial number. And if you get in, then you can negotiate with respect to the financial aid piece. Oh, and they have need-blind admissions. So they don't try and make a calculation before admitting you as to whether you can afford to pay. They admit you and then figure it out afterwards.
Okay, so for everyone listening to this, don't be sticker shocked like I was, right? Apply to the Ivy League schools and negotiate after, right? Okay, exactly. So that's a really big important piece that we do want to drive home to all of our folks that are listening to this that might want to go to those Ivy League schools but are just intimidated by the price tag, by the name, by all of the things that deterred me from applying back. For me it was 25 years ago. And I did go to college, but, applying to Princeton just seemed so far-fetched to me. So things have definitely changed. And, we do want to let everybody know that these are obtainable goals.
Yeah, and the other part of that part, too, is that I have an older brother. He went to the University of Virginia. But he had, school counselors telling him, you're not a good enough student to go there. And so don't let people tell you no. Don't beat yourself. if you apply and they don't admit you, that's one thing. But if you don't apply, you're definitely not going to get admitted.
Right.
So, yeah, take people's, recommendations and advice. But if you've got a school you really want to go to, make sure you apply.
Definitely. All right. Thank you for that. That was definitely a great bit of knowledge there. After Princeton, what happened next?
I went to Harvard Law School.
Harvard, okay,
Yeah.
Another Ivy League school.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. And the same process. You applied and got in on your own merit.
Applied, got in. Well, I think affirmative action probably helped. I don't think it hurt for sure.
Okay.
But I did really well at Princeton too. I was an honors graduate. So, Harvard was interesting too. By then I'd gotten rich, used to extremely rich people.
Okay.
But it was a different kind of educational process. So, yeah, I preferred undergrad to law school, but it was certainly worth the effort.
Okay. And how many years is law school? Just for our
It's 3 years.
3 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a 4-year undergrad and then a 3-year
For law school, yeah.
for law school. Okay. And to get into law school, are we taking the
It's a special test. It's called the LSAT.
LSAT? Great. Okay.
And it's like the SAT, but it's sort of crafted slightly differently, but it's the same kind of concept.
The same kind of concept.
Yeah, and you also want to make sure you have your grades
Your
in
grades
good
up.
shape. Yeah, really good shape.
Okay, so just for our listeners that are thinking, hey, I really want to become a lawyer, I don't know the path. We're talking 4 years undergrad, you're going to sit for your LSAT, and then 3 years at a law school.
Right.
Okay.
Now, one variation on that, especially now that law school is so expensive, there are a lot of people that go to night school for law school. So they stress instead of 3 years, it's 4. But you only have to go at night. So that permits you to have a job during the day. Mm-hmm. So you can not give up your job, you can pay for your things as you go, so you don't have as much debt, and it helps to keep you on the career track that you're already on. So night school is an option. In fact, I taught night school actually after at the University of Maryland's law school for 20 years.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of great students. It's a great way to go, actually.
Great. Okay, so I've heard, and this is, through all of my friends that are, attorneys and things like that, you can be a paralegal during the day and you can go to law school at night. Is that obtainable? Is that right?
You can do that. I mean, a lot of my students and were like working on Capitol Hill.
Okay.
During the day, or they were working in the federal government in a different job, sometimes in the private sector too.
Okay.
But there's no limit per se on what type of day job you have. You can do anything as long as you can manage your time well enough so that your employer's okay with it, and you still have enough time to do your schoolwork and get to your lectures for law school.
Great. Okay, so now after law school, is there a test that you have to take to like passing the bar, right?
Yeah,
it's the bar exam.
It's the bar exam, yeah. So, we did that. I came out of law school, moved to Baltimore, and started a law firm there. Took the bar, passed the bar during that time frame. Mm-hmm. But then I'd always been interested in politics.
Okay.
And so when I was in college, I started thinking, well, maybe I can run for Congress.
Okay.
So I actually got a job. I applied for work on Capitol Hill and landed a job with Congressman John Conyers,
okay.
a really iconic figure, one of the co-founders of the Congressional Black Caucus, one of the guys that passed parts of the Voting Rights Act, motor voter bill.
Okay.
Passed the Martin Luther King's birthday, so that's
right.
why we celebrate is his bill. So great opportunity there. So did some of the law firm work and then went to Capitol Hill to work there, and I moved from Baltimore to the DC area.
Okay, great. Yeah. So that's where it started. You moved to this area at a very young age, but your love for this area in terms of getting inbred in politics and working with them started primarily after law school when you moved to Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, Prince George's County was, when I was in school, was still a predominantly white jurisdiction. In fact, when I was in high school, I wasn't allowed to come to Prince George's County because the police were notorious for excessive force targeting black males in particular. Mm-hmm. So I didn't actually come here. I think I went to one concert. Capitol Center was out here at the time.
Okay.
I think I went to one show, and that was it. Otherwise, you just drove through and didn't stop. Okay. So the transition, though, by the mid 80s was already, kind of in full
Right.
full flower. So that's when we started looking. So I went to work on Capitol Hill, lived there for a while, met my soon-to-be wife, and then we bought a house out here in Prince George's County in Mount Rainier.
Okay, very, very
Yeah.
great. That's a lot of historical and great knowledge. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. So what was your experience like on Capitol Hill during that time?
It was great. I mean, I really enjoyed the work. Congressman Conyers, as I mentioned, was a legendary figure already. I think he'd been in Congress about 25 years at that point. He ended up serving, I think, about 50 plus years overall. But by the time I got to him, he was already chairing one of the major committees. It was called Government Operations at that point, and it was subcommittee chair on the Judiciary Committee. So it was interesting work. It was a fun time in a lot of ways. Democrats still controlled the House, so he still had leadership role there, but Reagan had become president, so there was a lot of back and forth with respect to Congress and the White House.
Right. Okay. And what were some educational platforms that you feel were essential during that time that helped the push of obviously all of the integration that was going on, as well as, the politics going on during that time, on Capitol Hill? Were there any educational platforms that you saw were really, really monumentous in helping to form what we have today?
Well, I mean, I think, one of the things is, being a good writer, I think is critical. I learned a different type of writing style. The academic writing style at Princeton was different than the legal writing style at Harvard, and that was different from the political writing style on Capitol Hill. So, that's in that time frame, you learned a lot of different ways to communicate with people, depending on who your audience is. And the Capitol Hill one is, I think, the most useful in a lot of ways, because it forces you to say relatively complicated things in very straightforward ways. So you're not showing off how big your vocabulary is. You're trying to talk to people in a way that reaches them, especially emotionally if possible, and can be persuasive, because that's a big part of what politics is about, especially now. And that was great training during that era. So
that's awesome. So when we talk about reading, writing, arithmetic, right? One of the biggest takeaways that I just got from you is that writing, being able to articulate yourself, being able to put down on paper what you want to say so that everybody is able to understand.
Yeah.
That is one of the goals that I think that is important. That's one big takeaway for me, and something that we probably still struggle with today, right? We don't want to use words that kind of make the water cloudy. We just want to get our points across and let folks know exactly what we mean.
Yeah, I think that's right. And even with AI now, where you could tell it, write a speech in the voice of Glenn Ivey, and it'll kick something out. But, there's still something that you bring to that. There's a part of you that no matter how good the algorithms are and the technology are, that still you have to add your spice to the dish there, so to speak.
Right.
And I think that's part of what makes it more accessible and more persuasive.
Thank you for that. So thank you for bringing up AI, because that was going to be one of my next questions, right? With AI and all of the tools that we have now that young people have at their fingertips, where they feel like, oh, I don't necessarily have to, I'm not saying work that hard, but I can have AI help me, and I have this tool to help me and that tool to help me. How do you think that that's going to play upon in generations to come, where they're not necessarily thinking and coming up with those ways to articulate themselves, right? Something is doing it for them. And with everyone kind of sounding the same because they're all using the same tools. What could we tell our young people to kind of keep them true to themselves, right? And not so much of depending upon AI.
Well, I mean, it's a tool to help you accomplish your goals. So when I was in college, we didn't have laptops yet. We didn't have computers yet, personal computers. It had old school typewriters. And so the transition from the old school typewriters to The personal computer was big, but it didn't change the need for you to know what you're doing. It was a tool that really accelerated your ability to get something done quickly and effectively. AI is like the next step of that, and it's a giant step for sure. But I think you still want to make sure that you've got the skills so that you're controlling what you're doing as opposed to being controlled by AI or whatever the tool is you're using.
That's awesome. So you're controlling what you're doing instead of the tool controlling you. I really like that phrase because a lot of times we don't know that we are being controlled by something because it's a tool that we use every day. But we could be controlled by something if we're not forceful enough to know what we want for ourselves to make sure that, we're obtaining our goals.
Yeah, for sure. With the algorithms, the way those work now, if you do an internet search, it'll try and channel you into a direction it thinks is the one that's best for you and best for them because they want to try and lock you into an area where they think you're the most interested because you'll stay on it longer. But if you want to know more than what's going on in the world than what the computer wants you to know, you can't allow yourself to be locked into that. You've got to recognize that it's trying to limit you in that way and break out of that and explore the world in the way that you want, in the time frame that you want.
Explore the world in the way that you want. Thank you so much. Getting back to politics, what does a typical workday look like for you? What is your routine?
Well, I mean, there's not a lot of typical days. I'm in Congress now, and so there are days where they have votes scheduled. You have to build the day around the votes. Also, we have hearings. I'm assigned to committees, and you'll go for the 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours that they're having the hearing and might question a witness or something along those lines. But, that's just the legislative part. The other part, though, what you're doing in the community can run the gamut. It can be, being at a school and trying to reach out to students and help them figure out how to get to where they're trying to go. It can be at, a program where it's domestic violence awareness, or it can be a reentry program for people coming out of jail and trying to find a way to become productive members of society. I mean, it can be anything. The key is that it's a good platform that you can use to elevate issues, elevate opportunities, elevate individuals who might not have gotten that chance, but for the position that and the spotlight that you can bring. And then you can let them shine, and it can make a big difference in the community. So there's a lot of things that we can do beyond legislation that, and we need to be doing it right now, that's for sure, because we need all hands on deck given the challenges we're facing.
Right. If you came across a young person that said, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to make a difference in my community. I want to go into politics. I want to, change my community. How would you tell them to start? What would be the first thing that you would tell them to do?
I mean, the beauty of politics is that you can get started at any age, really. I mean, every campaign cycle, every 2 years or so, we have people running for office. And one way to get involved is to work on a campaign. And you don't have to have special training necessarily or anything like that. Just volunteer to do the work. In fact, I did that as I was going through, because it's a whole different way to figure out what's going on in being a politician. Part of it's running for office and getting elected. Part of it's what do you do when you get there. But the part of running is critical too. That's a sort of integral part of how democracy works, and helping people get elected who are going to do the type of things that you want them to do that's consistent with your vision for where the community and the country need to go. We all need folks like that to make a difference. So I would say that, jump on a campaign. You may not like it. I know sometimes people think, I really want to do this, and they get there and do it, and it's not so great. In fact, that's how it worked for me in law school. I was like, I really want to be a lawyer, went to law school. I was like, yeah, I'm not loving this. So, test it out. And that's the upside about, especially doing it when you're young. You got a lot of time to figure things out, and you can make course corrections as you're going, or when you find that new thing, you can shift over to that and, throw yourself all the way into it.
Right. When you go into politics and you decide that you want to run, how do you know what what platforms or what things you want to help with? How do you know who do you want to work with? What things in the community you want to help change? How do you go about navigating that field and finding out, okay, this is something that means a lot to me. This is something that means a lot to me, and who you're going to get to partner with.
Well, part of it, I think, is, your upbringing. And I told you about growing up in segregation. And so for me, the civil rights movement was pivotal, and wanting to do things to sort of further that agenda was an important part. Also, their experiences that I had, and whether it's learning about policy issues in school or, you're living it and seeing it and you're like, man, we need to do something about that. That's another aspect. Another piece too, though, during the campaigns, call it door knocking. You go door to door to talk to people and you're asking them to support you. But a lot of times they'll tell you something, hey, we got a real problem here with fill in the blank, crime, streetlights out, the local school's not doing a good job educating my kids, whatever it is. And a lot of times it could be the most important part of your education as a politician, is what people are telling you they need, because ultimately that's kind of the nucleus of the job, is giving people the assistance they need to accomplish whatever their goals are. And a lot of times they don't necessarily know how to get something done. In fact, when I first started door knocking for one of my campaigns, the lady, raised an issue, and I said, well, here's one way we could do it. And she stopped me in the middle and she said, look, I don't know all of that stuff. You went to school, you know how to do it. I'm going to trust you to get it done for me. But, you do it the right way. And, that's the commission. That's the charge. That's the trust that you're given when you get one of those kinds of positions.
That's really meaningful and powerful, because with these positions, the public is really entrusting you and trusting that you are going to do it the right way. They might not know how to get their streetlights changed or get the trash collected or get trash off the streets or build a community center. They just know that it's needed in the community, and then it's your job to get it done. And that's a very, very big job to do.
Yeah, it is. I'm gonna give you one that's like that is, Mr. Ivy, my electricity prices are too high. Well, the system that goes behind the electricity showing up to your house when you flick on the light switch is enormously complicated. But she doesn't need to know all of that necessarily. She just needs to be like, what can you do to keep the prices, at least stop them from going up so fast? It'd be nice if you could slow it down, or, have them freeze in place for a minute. And so I know this part, because that was part of one of the jobs I did. I just need to know what she needs the help with. That's right. I fill in the blank.
That's a very, very big job. That's hard because there's so many different needs in the community that are similar to that, right? We need food, but we don't want food prices to go up. We need electricity, but we don't need electricity to go up. We need these services, but the prices for them increasing, especially for those that are on a fixed income, older individuals, and those are of our most vulnerable communities. So definitely that's a very, very big job to have. What could we tell someone that wants to get involved, that wants to help out with all of these things, and how they could even help on just a smaller level? Somebody like myself, right? Someone that cares about the community and that wants to get involved, but necessarily politics is just a little bit too big for my britches.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, I think, there's a lot of different ways to do it. For example, we're in a school right now, and some people run for student government, which is great. Some people as students, I've got a youth action committee that works with me, because there's a lot of things going on with respect to the schools that my kids are out of school now. So I don't necessarily know, but I'll give you an example. So last year when we started this out, they came in, I said, well, what kinds of things are you seeing? What kinds of challenges are we having? And one of the things they said was, the metal detectors you have to go through to get in, they don't have enough of them. So, you can be standing in a line And in a cold day or rainy day or something, it's a real problem. And so we brought in the school superintendent, and he didn't know about it. So now we've got to take additional steps to get more, metal detectors so we can accelerate that. But that's one of those things where you just, if you just need to listen. But the people who brought that to me, I think some have graduated and gone on to college, but some of them are still in high school. So they didn't need any kind of special job or special training or special position. They're living a life, and they know some of the challenges that are out there, and they know some of the things that need to be fixed. And they were able to bring that to me, and I can try and fix that. So that's, you don't have to be, specially anointed or anything to get involved in politics and to make a difference in your community. Whatever your sphere of influence is, you can operate in that, and you should.
Definitely. Thank you very much for that. So everybody can get involved. Everybody can do something, regardless of who you are or how small or big the effort is. It's always well appreciated when a change is made.
Absolutely. Definitely.
What could we do to help students that just don't know what to do? There's a lot of people that we come across that just don't know what to do. And it's hard. I know that you mentioned that you went to law school and you were like, I just, really don't want to, it just wasn't for me, And we come across a lot of people that say, oh, college isn't for me. A 4-year college isn't for me. All the studying isn't for me. How could we encourage individuals that don't know what to do to explore other careers, such as maybe a trade school or a technical school or an apprenticeship? What are things like that we could do to help influence individuals that are just stuck and don't know what they want to do?
Yeah, I found that a lot of people end up doing what they see. So that's why, like when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a pro basketball player. I stopped growing at 5'9", so that made it harder. But, you grow up watching people play basketball, or, you want to be in the music industry. Like now it's rapper. You want to be a rapper when they grow up or something, or a movie star, and that's fine, but giving yourself the chance to see other career tracks. And that's a challenge because a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. But, we have forums where we have job fairs. People can come in and talk to other people about different trades or different job opportunities. I know some schools try and bring people in. I used to go to schools and talk about what it was like to be a trial lawyer. I did end up finding a way to enjoy practicing law, but being open, exploring, and then if you see something you like, what I used to do is I used to read a lot of biographies about people. So at first I was reading about basketball players, but then it was like, okay, well, these guys, he looks like he's doing interesting stuff. How did he get there? Well, you had civil rights leaders that became ministers, or, Thurgood Marshall and the people that led the Supreme Court cases that led to Brown went to law school. So I'd read little biographies about them. Now that was harder then because you had to go to the library, get a book and read the whole book. You can go online now and pull up somebody's background on Wiki in 2 seconds and just sort of looking at what they did and how they got to where they're going, I think is a big step. And then after I started working with people, I'd go ask them. So I ended up with mentors. For example, when I was working on the Hill, there was a senator for Maryland named Paul Sarbanes, who I'd seen from the Watergate hearings. People watching probably won't know what that is, but he was a big deal. And I ended up meeting him, and later we ended up working for him. And I asked him, well, how did you get here? And so, he started talking to me about that, and he helped set me up to get to the point where I could run and get elected. So, but I would say, do your research, find, tracks. Look, you see, that guy's, he's living an interesting life. How did he get there? And usually if you ask people about their life, they can't wait to tell you about it. They'd be more than happy to fill you in. And then if they're doing something that you like and they're willing to help you, let them be your mentor. Because a lot of people will love to do that too.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was a long answer. I'm sorry.
No, I think that was the perfect answer, because that's exactly what the Uncommon Connector podcast is all about. We like to bring real individuals onto our podcast so that the public can know how they got there, how they started, how they got into that career, and that it's not always a linear path. It's not always straight. There will be bumps in the road. There will be things that'll happen, but as long as you stay the course, you will be successful in the end and fine. One thing that you mentioned about mentors, I would like to thank a lot of my mentors that helped me, because mentors are definitely important. And you're right, just asking people how they got to where they are, that's super important. And most people will tell you. They are open to discussing how they got there. And that's why we built the Uncommon Connector. That's why the Uncommon Connector is called the Uncommon Connector, right? Because you will be connected with people uncommonly, and you have the same interest, but you're just not sure how to get there. So we want to thank you very much for all of the knowledge that you've shared today. And is there anything that you want to leave the people with in terms of your education, your background, how you got here, your platform, and what's something really important that a young person or anyone could gain from your experience in the career that you've chosen?
I mean, well, first of all, thank you all for doing this. I think it's a great way to try and get the information out to young people so they can have a chance to think about how to get to where they're trying to go. And I would say to pursue your passion. I had just a quick story. My middle son got interested in acting when he was like 5 or something, because he had older brothers that were interested in it. And we put him into a local show with other kids. And one of the older kids had an agent. And he said, well, I want an agent too. And I said, well, that's cute. So, he's 5, but we'll take him. So we take him and he meets the agent that was that girl's agent. She picks him up on the spot, right? And starts working with him, and he starts getting jobs, Ford's Theater, Kennedy Center, all this stuff. And ultimately she said, I think when he's 10, we should have him audition for Lion King. And so I'm like, well, who gets that, right? So I'm talking to him and I'm like, if you don't get it, it's okay. We still love you. You're still our son and everything. And he's like, hey, Dad, can you squash the negativity, right? I said, all right, fine. And as it turns out, he kept training, he kept preparing, and he got the position. So he played young Simba on Broadway for a year when he was 10 years old. Then he decided not to do it anymore. He gave up acting after that. But the bottom line, though, is if you see something that you're really interested in, and especially if you start testing it out and you see that you've got the talent and the ability to do it, pursue it, go after it whole hog. And that doesn't mean you rule everything else out, like, don't quit school or something like that necessarily, because it's always good to have second tracks and second options. But don't let people talk you out of doing something that you're passionate about. Test it out, find people who've done it and they're successful at it, and see if they'll help you get there. And who knows, it might come together. As he said to me, somebody's got to get it, Dad. It might as well be me. And for you all out there, it might as well be you.
Thank you very much. I really, really appreciated this. This was eye-opening for me. I've learned something. I'm always seeking knowledge and being influenced at every single interview that I do. So thank you very much. And
thank you.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity.
My pleasure.
All right.
All right.
Most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not.
It gets the people going.
It's your boy JR dropping them beats.